Computer on, codename Woodpecker. Operation Yellow-Bellied Sapsucker. Note to file. Title Disavowed Knowledge. Treat with extreme discretion. First topic, characteristics of a novel coronavirus. Dr. Natalie Lambert of Indiana University School of Medicine and Survivor Corps helped to direct a survey titled the COVID-19 Long Haulers Symptom Survey Report, which identified 98 long-lasting symptoms and had identified as many as 98 long-lasting symptoms experienced by persons who have been infected by a novel coronavirus. Probably the most well-known disease associated with long-term effects is malaria, generally a tropical insect-borne illness. And with proper treatment, those long-term effects can be entirely avoided because the root cause for such long-term effects is that disease-causing virus can remain dormant and undetected in the liver, which proper treatment can eliminate. Moreover, the flashbacks from malaria are all similar to the original symptoms that arise from the original infection, which appears not to be the case with a novel coronavirus. So a reasonable person would suspect at least something odd. And for those who are familiar with the history of coronaviruses, were discovered in chickens in 1932 and giving rise to avian bronchitis, all the way to the very first discovered human coronavirus in 1966, discovered independently in the United Kingdom and at the University of Chicago by man and woman teams in both instances who were looking to determine the cause of the common cold, know that coronaviruses are associated only with upper respiratory tract infections and also to be co-infecting agents and not diseases in themselves, except for those emergences of SARS and MERS, and not associated with conjunctivitis, long COVID, COVID toes, loss of smell, loss of memory, gastrointestinal disorders, or any other symptoms and signs that have been attributed to a novel coronavirus. And what is most intriguing is that all of the complications associated with a novel coronavirus just happen, coincidentally, to parallel symptoms of being exposed to toxins and dioxins, most often associated with Chinese-manufactured smoke grenade munitions, which are set off by a 6-second burn that achieves a temperature of over 850 degrees, or the temperature of the flame produced by an F-1 booster on the Saturn V rocket that was used to launch the Apollo space missions to the moon. And if a person were suspecting that they would never be discovered, with everyone looking for an infectious disease walking in, they might be more prone to make a mistake. And so at least one person in Virginia has asked several members of Congress and persons in high-level office to inspect the veterans facilities in East Orange and also Washington, D.C., where over 1,000 veterans have died, to see if anyone might have accidentally left any burn marks behind. And all of those requests have been somehow, for unknown reasons, refused. Second topic, infectiousness. Basic epidemiological principles dictate that getting the virus is a function of whether someone's got it, how long they're exposed, and how much virus they are shedding, according to Bruce Elwood, Assistant Director General of the World Health Organization. And he provided this simple, easy-to-understand formula in an interview with Julia Bellus of Vox Media that was first published on March 2nd, 2020. After he had completed an examination of almost 56,000 laboratory-confirmed cases in China, a work done with the assistance of 1,800 teams of at least 5 epidemiologists who had examined cases and their trace contacts, pouring through thousands per day, but arriving at a secondary attack rate of less than 5%. And in addition to his surprise that in China infections seem to be driven by families living in close quarters for extended durations of time, most of whom tended to be farming families in the largest city in the central mainland of China and 42nd largest in the world, was that in flu, you'll find this virus right through the child population, right through blood samples of 20 to 40% of the population. And it is for this reason that he stated, in response to the pressure for massive lockdowns, I think people aren't paying close enough attention. And in his 40-page report had stated expressly it is not clear whether this correlates with the presence of an infectious virus. To an epidemiologist or infectious disease and control expert, a less than 5% secondary attack rate is 4 times too low to validate the presence of a disease being transmitted from person to person. And scientists have known since the 1980s that secondary attack rate would be 12 times too low to set off a super spreader event, as was claimed to have occurred at many places of worship and at the Rose Garden ceremony where the former president and first lady were infected. This even occurred immediately after the largest tracer contact study that has been performed to date, examining over 3 million laboratory-confirmed cases and their tracer contacts in India, and finding a secondary attack rate of only 4.6%. Again, not a disease being transmitted from person to person by the metrics. Secondary attack rate can be readily determined through trace contact follow-up, which before the current public health crisis had been the recommended procedure even by the CDC for immediate case identification, and far more efficient and effective than randomized or universal testing. Pause. Insert notation. A person acts with requisite knowledge if he is aware of or willfully blinds himself to a significant likelihood that his or her conduct will materially support the organization's terrorist ends. Holder v. Humanitarian Law Project, 561 U.S. 1, 2010. Continue. According to Professor Kit Yates, a senior lecturer in mathematics at the University of Bath, again, not a scientist, epidemiologist, biologist, in an interview with The Guardian in December 2021, the original variant had a basic R number of 3, actually less than 3 by the study performed by WHO, followed by the alpha, estimated to have an R naught of 4 to 5, and the delta with an R naught of 6 to 8, although CDC Director Rochelle Walensky had declared it the most infectious virus she had ever seen in her 20 years of practice, and assigned an R naught of 8 or 9. However, problematic with this analysis is that while those who are new to being inundated with public health statistics may be impressed with the quantifiable nature of an R naught measure, according to even the CDC, it is not a rate, but rather just a rough estimate based upon stochastic and mathematical models that are no better than the assumptions that are used to develop the model, a type of placeholder before a secondary attack rate can be determined, and expressly rejected because of its vulnerability to manipulation over the long term, which we have been using for over 2 years. And officially, the secondary attack rate for COVID-19, therefore, remains unknown, a metric of risk that could have been readily determined at the very outset had tracer contacts follow-up been employed. Third topic, infectious dose. Returning to the easy-to-understand formula, getting the virus is a function of whether someone's got it, how long they're exposed, and how much virus they're shedding. Infectious dose is simply the amount of biological agent that must be transmitted to a healthy host to give rise to an infection. 10 bacilli, you get tuberculosis. 8,000 to 50,000 spores, you will contract the disease associated with anthrax. And as of May 7, 2021, according to the CDC, the infectious dose of SARS-CoV-2 needed to transmit infection has not been established. Just because a person is shedding virus and the Delta variant was reported to produce a viral load as high as 1,260 times higher than the Alpha variant, that does not mean that it is the virus in a viable form. And it is of interest to a scientist that although viable samples were recovered on surfaces aboard the cruise ship Princess Diamond out to 11 days out, no viable viral load has been recovered from a nasopharyngeal swab from patients lasting longer than 6 days, almost half, presenting an anomaly. And it is this anomalous finding that is very reason for the 4 cautious postulates for validating causative agent for infectious disease. 24th postulate validation step, the isolated biological agent that is introduced to a healthy host cell is then extracted to determine whether or not the genome had been altered in any way. A recent report suggested that the genome strain on the Omicron virus variant has got 30,000 possibilities. However, with coronaviruses, because they are so large, scientists have determined long ago that they, through natural selection, developed a stabilizing zone at the center to fuse that center together to keep the genome from simply falling apart from its size. And so the only variations that occur on a coronavirus are at the extreme ends, reducing that number of 30,000 greatly. And from the presentation aboard the Princess Diamond, one could readily conclude that the infecting biological agent that had caused the outbreak aboard the cruise ship was not the same virus that continued the infection, or that would have been available for spread in the shedding of the infected patient's viral load. This could represent the difference between a biological agent that is cultivated in vivo, or within a living cell, and one that is cultivated in vitro, or in a petri dish, outside its living host. And it is of significance that in March 2015, scientists from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and the Wuhan Virology Institute had announced the successful cultivation in vitro of a SARS-like coronavirus, which had already been accomplished in Yunnan, a military-grade virology lab in China in 2012. But also in vitro, the very first virus ever to have been cultivated in a laboratory outside a living host. And it was a copy of this science report that Dr. Anthony FAUCI had transmitted to his deputy Q Auchincloss on February 1st, 2020, a Saturday, and wanted him to urgently become familiar with its contents. Fourth topic, anomaly. Why, after 2 years and over 5.5 million fatalities worldwide, as of December 1st, 2021, has not the infectious dose and secondary attack rate been determined, much like the zoonotic source that has not been found, but yet to spawn off new pandemics as assumed to be able to occur by Christian Anderson in September of 2021, the author of the Zoonotic Evolution Report back in March of 2020, or at least published by an official government source. Tentative conclusion would be that it sounds like it is classified information. However, under Executive Order 12958, classified national security information, dated April 17, 1995, and signed by Bill Clinton, specifically Part 1, Section 1.2A2, which provides that information may be originally classified under the terms of this order only if, in relevant part, the information is owned, produced by, or for, or is under the control of the United States government. Furthermore, under Executive Order 12958, Part 1, Section 1.1b, information means any knowledge that can be communicated or documentary material, regardless of its physical form or characteristics, that is owned by, produced by, or for, or is under the control of the United States government. So if the infectious dose and secondary attack rate is classified information, then it necessarily follows that the government must own the causative biological agent for COVID-19. Under a long line of Supreme Court decisions dating back to 1980 with Diamond v. Chakrabarty, and most recently Association for Molecular Pathology v. Myriad Genetics in 2013. All decisions regarding patentable biological products, that biological agent would have to, of necessity, originated in the laboratory. Mystery resolved. No science or further inspections required. And on February 14th, the White House response is due to the Chief Justice on a special application for injunction after they had failed to respond to a FOIA submitted on March 23rd, 2021. Almost 3/4 of a year ago. Fifth topic, transnational terror, during which time 3 million people have died worldwide. Fifth topic, transnational terror. Under 18 U.S.C. Section 2332 Bravo D1, the prosecution is not required to prove knowledge by any defendant of a jurisdictional offense alleged in the indictment. And in electing a right to remain silent, at least with regard to criminal conduct involving terrorism, a person acts with requisite knowledge if he is aware of or willfully blinds himself to a significant likelihood that his or her conduct will materially support the organization's terrorist aims. Holder v. Humanitarian Law Project 561 U.S. 1-2-2010. Moreover, at least in the Sixth Circuit, where it was found that where the object crimes alleged were a part of a broader conspiracy intended to promote enumerated crimes of terrorism, it has been held that the terrorism enhancement applies no matter which object crimes were assumed in the guilty verdict. So there is no need to determine beyond a reasonable doubt that a defendant or defendants conspired to commit any one of the named object crimes in particular. And that was U.S. v. Graff, cited by the Sixth Circuit in 2001. Similarly, the Seventh Circuit has held that if the act is among the litany of crimes listed in Section 2332 Bravo G5B, which includes a bevy of the most harmful and odious acts in the criminal code, including everything from murder and torture to the destruction of government property, and it was calculated to influence or affect the conduct of government by intimidation or coercion or to retaliate against government conduct, then it is a federal crime of terrorism. That was U.S. v. Christensen, Seventh Circuit case decided in 2009. And in that case, they decided that for all intents and purposes at sentencing, that person is a terrorist. Regardless, under 18 U.S.C. Section 2, anyone found to have aided and abetted in a crime can be prosecuted as a principal, no matter what you did. Mary Surratt was the first woman ever executed in the United States, and all that she did was provide a boarding house. It is well established that the acts of a subordinate done in compliance with an unlawful order given him by a superior are excused and impose no criminal liability upon him unless the superior's order is one which a man of ordinary sense and understanding would, under the circumstances, know to be unlawful, or if the order in question is actually known to the accused to be unlawful. That was stated in U.S. v. Cali in 1973. And defining with greater clarity these circumstances, one famous tribunal, the Eichmann trial, stated the distinguishing mark of a manifestly unlawful order should fly, like a black flag above the given order, as a warning reading prohibited, not mere formal illegality hidden or half hidden, not the kind of illegality discernible only to the eyes of legal experts, but a flagrant and manifest breach of law, certain and necessary illegality appearing on the face of the order itself, the clearly criminal character of the order or of the act's orders, an illegality clearly visible and repulsive to the heart, provided the eye is not blind and the heart is not stony and corrupt. That is the extent of manifest illegality required to release a soldier from the duty of obedience upon him and make him criminally responsible for his acts. And in that notorious case involving a crime against humanity, the court stated that undoubtedly he knew the value of the tale about administration of tonics, to which he put his signature. Sixth topic, extreme discretion. As the president had mentioned on Veterans Day, General Colin Powell had succumbed to COVID-19, just as the former president and first lady have been infected. The former governor and his wife have been infected, and Tim Kaine and his wife have been affected. Of the report. However, India's former president, Pranab Mukherjee, died on August 31st at the age of 84, 3 weeks after testing positive for coronavirus. President Pierre Nkurunziza, who had denied that coronavirus posed much danger to the small Central African country where he ruled had collapsed and died. On the domestic front, former presidential candidate Herman Cain died from complications due to COVID-19 on July 30th, all of which create a bit of a complication if the biological agent is owned by the government and, according to the metrics, could only have been deployed against the targets purposefully and not transmitted like a critical disease. Under 18 U.S.C. 1751, whoever kills any individual who is the President of the United States, the President-elect, the Vice President, or if there is no Vice President, the officer next in the order of succession to the office of the President of the United States, the Vice President-elect, or any person who is acting as President under the Constitution and laws of the United States, or 2, any person appointed under Section 105A to A of Title III employed in the executive office of the President, or appointed under Section 106A1A of Title III employed in the office of the Vice President, shall be punished as provided by Section 111 and 112 of this title. See also 18 U.S.C. Section 1351 regarding members of Congress. And in crimes, there are also punishments for attempts that failed. And under Ronald Reagan's Executive Order 12333, United States Intelligence Activities dated December 4th, 1981, Section 2.11, no person employed by or acting on behalf of the United States government shall engage in or conspire to engage in assassination, effectively retiring the last sanctioned assassin of the CIA, codenamed Nairobi. However, Gary Solis, a Marine Corps veteran and professor at Georgetown University, has distinguished an assassination from a targeted killing, arguing that a targeted killing is not an assassination if certain conditional requirements are met. Number 1, there is an ongoing military conflict. Number 2, the targeted individual, civilian or military, has taken up arms. 3, there is no reasonable possibility of arrest. And 4, the decision to kill is made by senior political figures. None of which conditions are satisfied for the fatality count of a biological agent, particularly amongst these world leaders and politicians, beyond a reasonable doubt, is a property of the government. It's a very bad thing if something that we own has gotten out of control and in somebody else's hands. Nor are the desires to provide support for much-needed medical supplies and access to diagnostics, therapeutics, and vaccines, or revitalize and expand global health and security initiatives for all nations to reduce the risk of future biological catastrophes, whether naturally occurring, accidental, or deliberate, according to the President in his interim national security guidance, as legitimate state interests, any more than they work to restore trust with the American people, mounting a safe, effective, and comprehensive vaccination campaign, and mitigate the spread through masking. Masks that have been determined over a decade ago not to work. Testing, which is not the effective way of case identification, and expanded public health workforce, and better data. End of transmission. This briefing is unclassified. Computer roll.
This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.
Thunk, I could have had a vaccine.